Hello, my yarny friends. Meet Kaboom. This is Kaboom, the 4th of July firecracker that can be used anytime you want to keep your kids safe and still have a fun time celebrating your patriotic or any holiday for that matter that you use fireworks. Now, this is just a fun little stuffy, and I named him Kaboom because I thought that was super fun. All right, it's stitched up using 2 strands of all acrylic yarns. It has a fun pom-pom that makes it look like it's a firecracker shooting off into the air. The kids can throw it around inside your house and not break your lamps. And you can play with it outside as well. Now, I've done it in Patriotic Colors. You can use any colors that you want to. It's super fun to make. And the truth is, you can use any face that you want on there. I just chose a silly one. And we've got these fun little stars that look like little fireworks exploding, and this fun, silly, loopy pom-pom that looks like it just was lit. Now you can find this fun and silly pattern on my blog with lots of pictures. And of course, you can find that link down in the notes underneath this video. Make Kaboom, the Firework Stuffie. You're going to need about an ounce of red, blue, white, little bit of gold, and then some black to make the eyes. Now the gold, you're going to need about an ounce as well, because we're going to make that pom-pom that's loopy at the bottom so that it looks like an explosion of a firecracker. Okay? And I love this idea because it's a fun and safe way to get your kids involved. They can throw it around the living room and it won't break a lamp. And they can play with it outside as well. You're going to need about, a couple of handfuls of stuffing. We don't stuff this real tight, just enough to give it a little bit of squishiness. We're going to be stitching with our J hook, which is a 6.0 millimeter crochet hook. You need a needle for weaving in ends and embroidering on the eyes and smile. And then you need your scissors. So it doesn't take much supplies. And another thing to remember, I've done this in 4th of July Patriotic Colors because that's what we're celebrating this next week. But you can make this in any colors that you want to. Firecrackers aren't always just red, white, and blue. There are lots of different colors, and you can use whatever colors you've got in your yarn stash. These are all medium weight number 4 acrylic yarns. We're going to be stitching the whole stuffy using 2 strands of acrylic yarn held together. So we're going to begin with our slip knot. And we're going to chain 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to stitch 7 double crochets in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over, go in that 4th chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. All right, so we've got this chain 3 here at the beginning is going to count as 1 double crochet. And we're going to stitch 7 more, so we have a total of 8. And we'll be stitching them all in the 4th chain from the hook. Alrighty, let's see how many I've completed. So we have our chain 3 here, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is what we need, our chain 3 and 7 more double crochets. We're going to join to that chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. Alright, so this is going to be the top of our firework or firecracker. Now, before we go any farther, you may have a hole in the top of your firework. And so we'll take those 2 strands, put them on our needle, and close up this hole. Now if you wanted to start with the magic ring or magic circle, that's totally fine. It works just as well. Make sure that hole's nice and closed. We don't want a hole in the top of our stuffy. There we go. Snug. All right. Then we'll just clip that. All right, so for row 1, we have 8 double crochets. We joined to the top of that chain 3 and chained 3. And again, this is the top of our firework and will increase as we move down. All right, now for row 2, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. We're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the next double crochet. So 1 and 2. 1 double crochet in the next, and 2 double crochets in the next. 1 and 2. 1 double crochet in the next, and 2 double crochets in the next. 1 in the next, and 2 double crochets in the next. 1 and 2. All right, so we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 double crochets for row 2. We're going to join to that chain 3 with a slip stitch, and again chain 3. So we've increased from 8 double crochets on row 1 to 12 double crochets on row 2. All right, so now we've joined, we've chained 3, and now we're going to increase again. We're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the next stitch because our chain 3 counts as 1, and then we'll stitch 2 double crochets in the next. 1 and 2. 2 double crochets in that last stitch, and then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in the next 2. 1, 2. Then 2 double crochets in the next stitch. 1 and 2. And 1 double crochet in the next 2. 1 and 2. 2 double crochets in the next. 1 and 2. And then 1 double crochet in the next 2. 1, 2. All right, let's see how we've done so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then in that last stitch, we're going to stitch 2 double crochets, and that will give us 16 double crochets for row 3. Then we'll join to that chain 3, and again chain 3. All right, so you can see how we've increased. Okay, let's do row 4. Again, our chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet. We're going to double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then we'll stitch 2 double crochets in the next. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so now we're going to double crochet in the next 3. 1, 2, 3, 2 double crochets in the next. 1 and 2. 1 double crochet in the next 3, 1, 2, 3, and 2 double crochets in the next, 1 and 2. And then we have those last 4 stitches, so 1 double crochet in the next 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 double crochets in that last stitch, 1 and 2. And this is going to give us 20 double crochets. So we'll join to the top of that chain 3 and chain 3. All right, and so now for row 4 we have 20 double crochets. All right, let's do row 5. So our chain 3 again counts as 1 double crochet, and we're going to stitch a double crochet in the next 3. So make sure we get through both those strands of yarn. All right, there's my 3 stitches. Our chain 3 counts as 1. I stitch 3 more, so there's 4, and then 2 double crochets in the next, 1 and 2. And then we'll repeat that. 1 double crochet in the next 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 double crochets in the next, 1 and 2. And then we'll repeat that the rest of the way around. 1 double crochet in the next 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 double crochets in the next, 1 and 2. And that leaves us with these last 5 stitches. And so we'll stitch 1 double crochet in the next 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 2 double crochets in that last stitch, 1 and 2. And again we'll join to our chain 3 with a slip stitch, but we're not going to chain 3 because on row 6 we're going to change colors. And so this is what the top of your firework or firecracker kaboom should look like at row 5, and you should have 24 double crochets. Now for row 6 we're going to be changing to our red yarn. That's why we didn't do a chain 3. All right, so we're going to cut our blue yarn. We're finished with the blue now, and we're going to bring in our red yarn. And again, we're working with 2 strands for the entire stuffy. All right, now we're going to chain 3 with our red yarn, and it's important to change colors before you do that chain 3, or you'll have 1 stitch that's blue on our red row. All right, and what we're going to be doing for row 6 is we're going to place 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets around, but we're going to be working in the back loop only. And that means these loops on the top, you have a front loop here and a back loop here, and we're going to be working in those back loops. And so we're going to just stitch 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around, only working in the back loop. And you'll know you're doing it right when you see that line around. And the line I'm talking about is right here, because that's the front loop we did not stitch in. All right, so 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets around, working in the back loop only. So we're using our red yarn, stitching 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around, working in the back loop only. I stitched 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around, stitching in the back loop only, and you again can see how it makes that line across there. We just want that there for a little bit of separation from the top of our stuffy to the bottom. All right, and you're going to have 24 double crochets, counting that chain 3. We're going to join to the chain 3 with a slip stitch. We're going to be changing colors every other row with white, and so we're going to leave our red yarn attached. We're going to bring in our white again using 2 strands, and we'll snug that down. And we're going to go in between the first 2 stitches. So we're going to yarn over, go in between the first 2 double crochets, and stitch our double crochet. It's a little bit different than what we've been doing. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch our double crochets in between each of the double crochet stitches. Instead of stitching in it, we're stitching in between. So yarn over, go in between in that little space in there, and stitch a double crochet. And we're going to do this working all the way around. And see how that looks? We're stitching in between each of the double crochets, and we'll continue this all the way around till we reach back to that first double crochet stitch. I stitched 1 double crochet in between each of those double crochet stitches all the way around, and you're going to have 24 double crochet stitches. We're going to join to that first double crochet, and now we're going to bring back in our red yarn and leave our white yarn still attached. Okay, snug that down. Oops, pulled the wrong string. There we go. We're going to chain just 1, and now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to double crochet in between. We're going to go in this next stitch here and double crochet in between each of those double crochet stitches. And this makes it a little bit closer, and it just makes it have a really neat effect, and I really thought that it was pretty for this project. All right, so we chained 1. We began stitching in the next space between each of the double crochets, and we're going to repeat this all the way around just like we did on the white row. So I stitched that red row exactly like I did the white row. We started with the chain 1, we stitched a double crochet in between each of the double crochet stitches all the way around, and then joined back to that first double crochet and chained 1 after we change colors. Here's my white one, and chain 1, and then we'll repeat what we did for 5 more rows. So what you're going to do is you're going to continue to repeat stitching your double crochets in between your double crochets for 5 more rows, alternating red and white, red and white, red and white. If you want it to be a much longer stuffy, you can alternate your rows for as long as you want to. But for this project, we're going to be alternating our rows for 5 more rows. So I continue to repeat this, alternating my colors every other row, so I have a nice red and white striped bottom of my stuffy. But like I said, if you want this portion longer, you can continue to alternate those rows for as long as you want to. All right, so once we've done those 5 additional rows, we're going to go ahead and stuff our stuffy. And the amount of stuffing that you use is up to you. I like them to be a little bit squishy, so I'm not going to put a whole bunch of stuffing in there. And again, this is just polyester fiber fill that I had on hand from other projects. All right, so I've stuffed it in there. Oops. And now what we're going to do is you want to lay it flat so that your ending is over to the side, and you can decide which side you want to be your front or your back. It's totally up to you. All right, so all we're going to do now, get that out there a little bit. We're going to put our hook in and we're going to close it up. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to flatten it and stitch single crochets across the bottom. This side, and stitch it closed with simple single crochet stitches. It works up really quickly. Alrighty, let's get that last stitch. Oops, there we go. So we just single crochet closed the bottom of our stuffy. We're going to cut our yarn, tie that off, and just take a few minutes and weave this in. And then it's time for all the fun details that makes this stuffy super cute. So I made the one little star down here, and I'm going to show you how to make the other one up on the blue because it's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. And the important thing about when you're making these is make sure you go in stitches and not the holes in between the stitches. All right, so I'm going to come up on the side, and I'm going to come right up in the center of one of those stitches. And I'm first going to make an X. So I'm going to come over here into a stitch over here, and then I'll come over here into a stitch. And you don't have to make it perfect. You might want it to be a little off just so it looks a little more like a firecracker star. Okay, and then I'll come over this way, and then this way. All right, let me go to the back, pull that through that way, and see how that just makes a fun little star on there. All right, and then on the back, what we want to do, find those tails, there we go, is I go ahead and I cut this so that it's not quite so long to work with. And then we pull it just gently and make a knot. Then we'll clip that close and then poke that back in so it's in the stuffing. And then that will hold that star in place. All right, so now our firecracker has a star up here and a star down here. All right, so we're going to come in from the back. We're going to go in between stitches, kind of wind that in that stuffing. We'll come up through a stitch on the front. You can see that we'll pull right in there because we put a knot on the end. And we're going to make a couple of French knots for the eyes first. I'm going to wind 3 times, and I am using 2 strands of yarn. And then I'm going to come over a little bit into another stitch, and I'm trying to stitch in the white stitches so it's a little bit easier to see those cute eyes and face. All right, so I got a little stuffing on my eye there. All right, so there's one eye, and you'll notice I'm sort of off centering it. And then we'll do the next eye, 3 wraps and go in the stitch. And then I'm going to come down over here and come up through another stitch because we're going to make that silly mouth. Oops. There we go. So there's the eyes, a little bit off center. And I'm going to come up. I want to make that mouth just a little bit more silly. So I'm going to come up like that. And you can measure this all out if you want to. I kind of like to freehand it just to see how it's going to turn out. The main thing is to stitch your straight stitches in the stitches themselves and not the holes. Okay. There we go. I'm coming back up here because I want to add that little extra on the side of that mouth. There we go. And then I'm going to wind that around and pull that through to the back. And first I want to make sure I didn't pull that too tight. See, isn't that funny little face? I love that. All right, so I only put the line on this side. If you want to do one on that side, you can. I mean, I can do that real quick. Come back over to this other side and just put that little line on there. Let's see, I want to make sure I get in the stitch. Then I'll wind that around that stuffing and come up through the back. Yeah, that looks a little more complete, doesn't it? It's up to you how you want to do your mouth, and you don't have to do it in black. You can use other colors. I just wanted to use black so it would stand out and look pretty. All right, so now I'm just going to do the same thing. Cut this a little shorter. Tie a knot. Clip that close, and then stuff that back into the stuffing. All right, so now our silly firecracker Kaboom has a face on the side that's kind of silly and these two stars. The last thing it needs is its pom-pom. I have a piece of white yarn I'm going to use to tie the pom-pom closed. And then I have all my colors here. We're going to be using all of them, but we're going to be using more of the gold than the others. And so I've got all of them together like this. And we want this to be a looser pom-pom, not a tight one like on a hat, because we want it to look like an explosion of a firecracker. So I'm going to wrap it loosely around my hand a couple of times. And I want to make sure that when I cut the red, white, and blue strands off, that they're close to where we started. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those off. And then I'm going to continue winding loosely with the gold. We want the explosion of it to be mostly the gold yarn. And so I'm just going to loosely wrap this around. And I don't really have a set amount. It's kind of how tightly you want to have your pom-pom. But I'm going to say about 20 wraps. And I am using 2 strands, which will make it go just a little bit faster. Because I want it to be full. I just want it to be loopy. All right, so I've got quite a bit here. So we'll go ahead and cut that. We'll grab this, and you'll notice I'm not going through both. I'm just going through the big loop, okay? And I'm looking, I'm thinking, is that going to be full enough? I don't think so. So I think I'm going to get some more wraps of the gold on there and then tie that. So I've got about 20 more wraps of my gold because I just thought it needed just a little bit more gold. All right, that looks a lot better to me. Because I want the red, white, and blue in it, but I want it to mostly be gold. And of course, color choices are totally up to you. All right, so we're going to tie this. We're going to do it a couple of times because we want that tie to stay nice and secure. I did 3, and then I'm going to do that one I like to do where I do a twist at the top like that. All right, so now what we're going to do is just trim this. So I'm going to get my little container here that I like to use so it catches all of the pieces. Pull this down and just cut. Now, some of these may be shorter, some longer, so we'll have to trim a little bit. But on the other hand, we don't want it to be perfect because we want it to look like an explosion of a firecracker. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of shake it out And now I'm going to do just a little bit what I don't usually do with a pom-pom, and kind of cut the sides a little like this. And this will make it just a little bit more random and not quite so perfect. And see how that's going to lay a little better? Let me pull this up so you can see it. Just a little bit more. Not quite so perfect. All right, now I'll show you how to hook it onto the bottom of your Kaboom. So here's our Kaboom firecracker stuffie, and we're just going to take this and I'm going to lay it this way, and we're just going to make a few stitches, and we're going to go through that loop that we made with the yarn. Okay, and we want to do this a few times so it's going to stay put, because this is going to get played with, right? And so we want it to stay on our stuffie. Okay. Alrighty, I'm going to do just a few more stitches just so I know it's secure. Alrighty, and then we'll weave that in. And that's nice and secure. I'm just going to go in, do that swirly thing in the stuffing, and come up here. And then we'll go ahead and make that knot. There we go. And now Kaboom looks like it's a firecracker shooting through the sky. So now Kaboom is all ready to be played with, thrown around the room, thrown around outside, and just a fun and safe toy to celebrate the 4th of July, or any time you want to do some firecrackers, but you want to keep your house from getting all messed up and your children safe. Isn't that adorable? It just makes me giggle looking at that smile.